Folks, today we're going to talk about Apocalyse Ravi, more specifically this video on Apocalyse Ravi, which is, in my opinion, the worst video I have ever made. It's the worst video I've ever made because it's got a lot of bad math in it, very poor stat spreads, very terrible assumptions, and it shows my overall inexperience with the character at the time. Some people show me Apocalyse Ravi on my Discord server or over on my Twitch streams, and honestly, it looks exactly like that video, and every time I see it, I get embarrassed because people trusted that video to be good, and it has not aged well, and it wasn't even good at that time. Right now, as of the recording of this video in mid-2023, Apocalyse Ravi is a top 3 win rate here on Epic 7 and a staple of nearly every PvP format. And if my guide on it is really terrible, then that's a bad look on me. If you search on YouTube, the guide's probably going to show up near the top, at least for the query of Apocalyse Ravi. And again, I think it's the worst video I've ever made, so I really want to fix that. I really want to make sure that the audience receives good and accurate information from one of my guides. And I don't want people to watch terrible, outdated guides like the first one that I did on Ravi. So in this video, I'll be speed running through things like stats, skills, and matchup knowledge, since some of you have probably already seen those things before. But the core of the video, the build section, that will still be as in-depth and here for everyone for Apocalyse Ravi. In this video, I'll be talking about a speed set build, a destruction build, a counter set build, and also an effect resistance build. I hope you find this updated guide helpful, and if it could help another one of your friends or guildmates, feel free to share it with them. Alright? Let's get into it. Apocalyse Ravi is a dark warrior of the Cancer zodiac symbol. She shares a stat line with Alencia as well as designer Lilibet. Taking a look at her stats, she has 975 attack, 652 defense, 7054 health, 106 speed, 15% critical hit chance. The 45% that is listed on your screen is misleading. It is due to her S2 passive, War God's Might, which we'll talk about in the next section. Critical hit damage is 150%, effect resistance and effectiveness are both 0, and dual attack chance is 3%. In the English dub of Epic 7, Apocalyse Ravi is voiced by Frida Wolf, who is someone we've talked about recently in several videos on this channel. She is also the English voice for all versions of Bellona, as well as all versions of Lulika. In the Japanese dub of Epic 7, Apocalyse Ravi, as well as all versions of Ravi, are voiced by the legendary Aoi Yuki, who is an award-winning voiceover artist who is responsible for characters such as Madoka from Madoka Magica, Tsuyu Asui from My Hero Academia, Lucy from the recent Cyberpunk Edgerunners, Shuten Doji and Okita Soji for you Fate franchise fanatics, and hell, she's even Gwen Stacy in the Japanese dub of Across the Spider-Verse.
Your life ends here.
Apocalyse Ravi's S1 is Spectral Axe. You acquire 20 Fighting Spirit upon use. This move has a 1x attack multiplier, as well as a 12% max health multiplier. 30% of the damage that Spectral Axe deals is returned as health. Additionally, it injures the target for 10% of their maximum health.
Step back, flies.
Apocalyse Ravi's S2 is her passive skill, War God's Might. It increases her critical hit chance by 30%, and she starts the first battle with 50 Fighting Spirit. Whenever she's attacked, she consumes 10 Fighting Spirit to increase her combat readiness by 15%. She also heals herself for 6 to 8% of her maximum health, depending on Molagora. Apocalyse Ravi's S3 is her signature skill, Deliverance Soul Exchange. You acquire 30 Fighting Spirit upon use, and you also acquire 2 souls upon use. It has a 4 to 5 turn cooldown, depending on Molagora. This is a single target attack with a 1.3x attack multiplier, as well as a 20% max health multiplier. The damage on Deliverance Soul Exchange increases by 25% whenever anyone dies, whether that is on Apocalyse Ravi's team or her opponent's team, to a maximum of 75% bonus damage. If Deliverance Soul Exchange secures a kill, it will revive a random ally on Apocalyse Ravi's team with 30% of their max health, a skill nullifier once, and increase their combat readiness by 100%, essentially granting them the turn.
Enjoy the pain. It'll be the last thing you feel. I'll take your life.
Apocalyse Ravi's Soul Burn costs 20 souls. It changes the damage multiplier on Spectral Axe to a 2x attack multiplier, as well as 24% max health multiplier. The healing stays the same, but due to the increased damage and the fact that it returns 30% of the health, it still gives you a lot of health back.
Die, insect. Your life ends here.
As for Molagora priorities, this character is broken, just plus 15er. So now we come to the meat and potatoes of the video, the reason why I'm making this in the first place. When I first made How to Play Apocalyse Ravi, I had the character for less than a week, and I kind of went with most people's initial builds that I had seen on streams. Didn't really do a whole heck of a lot of testing, and that is why it is, in my opinion, the worst video that I've ever made. If we take a look at what I used to recommend for Apocalyse Ravi, I was focusing pretty heavily on those attack scaling multipliers. You can see I have 2100 attack here, and my defense is only 1200, and my HP is only 20k with 200 speed, 100% critical hit chance, and 250% critical hit damage. This looks nothing like how anyone plays Apocalyse Ravi, even the really bad ones that you see running around. No one has this low health, no one has this low defense, no one has this much attack. Again, I wanted to do this character justice and show you in this video 4 builds that work out really, really well, and there's no better way for us to contrast the old one with the new one than my current Apocalyse Ravi build, which is a speed set build. I am on speed penetration, and for offsets you can use critical hit chance or health set. You technically could also use immunity as well here. I think that the primary thing that you want to do with Apocalyse Ravi is focus really, really hard on the health scaling on this character. If this character cannot be killed, if she is absurdly tanky, she will win the game even if you don't have the most impressive amount of damage. I personally play the speed set build, but there are others that I will show you in this video that have either a different playstyle, or B, are technically slightly easier for you to gear, which is the destruction build that we'll talk about after this one. Looking at the desired stats, I have 1,617 attack. This is Apocalyse Ravi's base attack with an I-90 weapon with a plus 30 Proof of Valor, which is going to be the recommended artifact for most of these builds. Taking a look at our defense, I have 1350 defense, which is a decent amount. If you decide to go a bit higher, you can do so. I think 1200 was a little bit too low. 1350 kind of gives you a little bit more bulk. It makes things a little bit better in the EHP department. For health, I have 26k. If you can go higher this, I encourage you to do so. As you can see, I have over 27k health. Some people have over 28k or higher on their Apocalyse Ravi. Speed, I have 180. If you can't really hit this, that's fine. Focus on the HP first and foremost. You can get away with a slower Apocalyse Ravi as long as she's absurdly tanky and hits like a truck because of her built-in healing, as well as the fact that she gets healing and combat readiness whenever you actually hit her. Critical hit chance is 100% because she is a damage dealer, and critical hit damage, I have 250%, which I think is the floor for this character. Maybe like 240 or 245. You might be able to get away with going that low on the character, but realistically, this is a damage dealer. You should probably have her around 270 or 280 critical hit damage, if I'm being honest, and the best ones have close to 300%. No need for effectiveness or effect resistance because, well, we're not a debuffer or we don't really care about ER unless you go with the last build that we talk about in this video. Take a look at the right side gear. Critical hit damage necklace is what's going to make this the easiest for you. Ring for every build is going to be HP percentage because it gives you tankiness as well as damage. She is a health scaler. For boots, it's surprisingly HP percent. You can see here that I actually have health percentage boots also on my Apocalyse Ravi. Not the best boots, but these are the ones that I have that work out for the character. So yeah, you are going to want to have HP percentage boots as opposed to speed. Having speed boots is what I recommended in the previous video, and that's why the HP totals were so low. You'll notice on most of these builds that you're going to want to have 2 HP percentage right side pieces, and you're going to do some kind of finessing and finagling to get the character to actually line up properly. You could still use speed boots on this character if you want. You're just going to need really, really high quality subs across the board. Taking a look at the artifact choices, Proof of Valor, I think, is the one that most people should be playing on the character, but Samsara Prayer Beads gives you a bit of damage mitigation as well as damage itself, and then also Draco Plate gives you, again, some extra damage as well as some form of damage mitigation. So you really should be playing damage mitigation as an artifact choice on this character, because with War God's Might and its self-healing, character becomes nigh unkillable unless they're going to use some kind of anti-Dark Slayer like, say, Savior Auden or Little Queen Charlotte, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the topic of matchup knowledge. Taking a look at the per piece average, it is 21% health, 12% defense, 8 speed, and you can see the last one here. I have critical hit chance and critical hit damage. That is going to be 9% and 6% respectively. Next up, let's talk about a destruction set build. Since I made the first how to play Apocalyse Ravi video, destruction set was buffed. It now mathematically gives the most amount of stats compared to every other 4-piece set in the game, meaning if you don't have any gear whatsoever built for this character, you should probably start with destruction, because since it gives the most amount of raw stats, it will be the easiest for you to actually assemble a working Apocalyse Ravi with. Looking at the primary sets, we're on destruction penetration. The offsets that you could play are, again, critical, health, and immunity. The desired stats are exactly the same as the speed set, but when we take a look at the per piece average in the next slide, you'll realize that it's actually easier, if only slightly, to build the destruction one compared to the speed set build. Taking a look at our right side gear here, I have HP percentage as the necklace, as destruction gives you a 60% critical hit damage increase, so we don't actually need the necklace. You could, in theory, play critical hit chance neck or critical hit damage neck. I leave that to you. It depends entirely on the subs. Do note, if you choose a critical hit chance necklace, you will go over 100% critical hit chance, because you already start at 45% thanks to War God's Might. Ring is still HP percentage. Boots on this one are speed, because our 2 HP percentage right side pieces are tied up in both the neck as well as the ring, so we can use the speed boots to kind of help increase our speed stat. Artifact is going to be Proof of Valor, Samsara Prayer Beads, or again, Draco Plate, some form of damage mitigation artifact. Looking at the per piece average, it's still 21% health, 12% defense, 6 speed this time, and then you'll notice the critical hit chance / critical hit damage is very, very similar at 9 and 7 respectively. Next up, let's talk about the counter build on Apocalyse Ravi. I think this is excellent for players that want to play her on either Arena defense or Guild War defense, and it still is really good even in World Arena. In my personal opinion, Destruction set and Counter set Apocalyse Ravi are the two best versions of the character, with speed slightly behind as the third place build, because it's just not as mathematically efficient as Destruction set, and it doesn't offer you those high roll scenarios with a counter build. If you counter a lot on Apocalyse Ravi on a counter set, you're probably winning that game. It feels really, really good. Destruction and speed, I think, though, are for players who want to be a bit more proactive. So if you're wondering what the decision is between choosing one over the other, that's pretty much what it comes down to. Do you want to be a more proactive player, or would you rather lean into those high rolls if you're a Banshee gamer? Taking a look at the actual build, we're on counter penetration, with the offsets being either critical, health, or immunity if you don't want to play penetration, but I still strongly recommend that everyone plays penetration set. Desired stats, 1617 as our attack, 1350 defense again, 26k HP again, 160 speed, because counter set does not actually give you any bonus stats here in this regard, so we could afford to go a bit slower and try and prop up our health and other stats, and just kind of lean into our counters and our War God's Might combat readiness pushes. Critical hit chance is still 100%. Critical hit damage is 250%. Again, like 240, 245 is the floor. You really would like to be around 270 or 280, and if you have really good gear, try and shoot for around 300. Taking a look at our right side, critical hit damage necklace reappears once again, but you could technically play HP percentage as well, depending on how your subs fall. Ring is still HP percentage. Boots are HP percentage here as well. Again, remember, need 2 HP percentage pieces on our right side in order to get that really tanky amount of stats. 26k, probably the lowest we want to be. Realistically, would love to be over 27, and if you have super godly gear, try to shoot for over 28. Artifact choice here has not really changed either. Proof of Valor, Samsara Prayer Beads, or again, Draco Plate, some kind of damage mitigation, and then your choice of one of the ones that gives you damage if you so choose. Per piece average, 21% health yet again, 12% defense, 9 speed this time as opposed to 6 or 8 in the other ones. And then when we take a look at the critical hit chance / critical hit damage, it's still roughly the same at around 9 and 6 respectively. The last build to talk about is what I would call an experimental build, which is the effect resistance build for Apocalypse Ravi. One of the things we'll talk about very shortly after this is matchup knowledge, and one of the things that beats Apocalypse Ravi is being controlled by debuffs. Certain players have decided to lean into the triple S imprint that Apocalypse Ravi has that gives effect resistance and tried to build her with some ER to mitigate this problem. I have personally talked to 1 or 2 players who have actually used this build. However, I do want to say I've never played this build and I've never played against this build. However, players that I respect, such as Elfmage, have run into this build on ladder on stream, and therefore I felt it was worth including it in the video since it is something that high-level players do play and high-level players do run into. Taking a look at the actual primary sets for this, it is a destruction set, which is required, and a resist offset, which is required. You also are going to be required to have a triple S imprint on your Apocalypse Ravi to attempt this build. It is one of the highest gear score builds that I've ever talked about in any of my videos. It's right up there with the build that is from How to Play Strazi. Incredibly difficult to gear. Don't feel bad if you can't actually build this Apocalypse Ravi, because I certainly can. Taking a look at the desired stats, 1695 attack. This is simply a Apocalypse Ravi with an I-90 weapon and the recommended artifact, which is Draco Plate, because that's the only one I've ever seen people use on this build to supplement the lack of damage that's on the character, the lack of HP. Defense is 1350. However, the health is only 23.5k HP. The highest I've seen is 24k HP on this build. Speed is 170. You could realistically go like 165 if you so choose. You're giving sacrifices on your stats in order to accomplish this ER build. To get the ER higher, we have to give up something. So you'll notice we give it up in terms of HP, in terms of speed, and in terms of critical hit damage. Speaking of critical hit damage, 220%. Most of the ones that I have seen have had around 240% critical hit damage. I usually try to undercut and low roll on the desired stats you see here to make them more accessible for people. If you have the ability to go for 240, 250% critical hit damage, I encourage you to do so. Effect resistance is 130%. That is still low rolling, but that's like the lowest you would even want to attempt to use on Apocalypse Ravi, so that way you have a chance of resisting some of these lower to no effectiveness actual debuffers. The highest I've seen is around 145%. That makes it very difficult for things like Spectre Tenebria to stun you with Endless Nightmare, DPS like Revenant Violet to land blinds on you, so on and so forth. Taking a look at the right side build, we're on a critical hit chance necklace, which will end up making you have 105% critical hit chance. However, critical hit chance is the most efficient mathematically for the necklace slot, so this is the only thing I think realistically that's going to make this possible. I think if you just don't have a critical hit chance necklace, you can't make this build. It's the only thing that makes the math work, so that's why it's here. Ring is effect resistance, although you could use HP percentage if your actual subs are absolutely insane. Boots are going to be HP percentage, and again, you could use speed, but again, your subs would just have to be absolutely insane. So I think for most people trying to attempt this, crit hit chance is the necklace, effect resistance is the ring, HP percentage is the boot, and then just try and pick up the HP and the speed stats through your subs. Looking at the artifact choice, again, Draco Plate. This is the only one that I've seen work, but in theory, there might be a way to get Proof of Valor or Samsara Prayer Beads to work on this as well. Looking at our per piece average here, we have 24% health, 12% defense, which is about the same, if not slightly more than all the other builds. 10 speed, which is, again, slightly more than all the other builds, and 12% critical hit damage, which is, again, more than all the other builds. So you can see this requires much better gear than the other Apocalypse Ravi builds that we talked about in this video. As always, let's round out the video with some matchup knowledge. As of the recording of this video, Apocalypse Ravi is still one of the best characters in the game. She's one of the most played characters in the game. She's one of the highest win rate characters in the game. If you own her, you're probably taking her early and often in the draft. And since you're taking her early, you can't really avoid a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, so you should formulate some kind of game plan. The first thing that Apocalypse Ravi really struggles against is anti-dark units, which is not really that much of a shocker. Savior Auden is the one that everybody has access to. But you also have characters like Little Queen Charlotte. These characters are designed to destroy Apocalypse Ravi in one, maybe two hits. Little Queen Charlotte most likely is going to take you out in one hit, especially if she's on a slow Hellcutter build. You should have some form of plan against these characters. So either an anti-dodge unit for Auden or some kind of control unit for Little Queen Charlotte. Since Apocalypse Ravi is a Hell Scaler, injury characters are also something that you should actually avoid as well. If your HP gets reduced by half from an injury character, the effective use of your Apocalypse Ravi is drastically diminished. She just won't do as much damage, won't have as much game impact. Alencia is going to be the primary one you see, but anymore you do also see Winterberg waifu Ilanev show up from time to time. These are characters that you should focus fire, get them off the board as fast as possible, because once we get to later stages of Frenzy, they're going to absolutely destroy Apocalypse Ravi. She'll be super injured, and they could probably kill her in one, maybe two attack cycles. And the last thing that I want to talk about is control characters. Characters like your Sage Ball and Saisons with the sleep, your Solitary of the Snow with your actual stuns, and even a character like Archdemon Shadow with Seal. With the nerf to Crimson Seed and the change to Timeless Anchor, it's really easy to control Apocalypse Ravi, so you should pair her with some kind of cleanser, because if you don't, you're probably going to be in for a world of hurt. They're going to make it so that your Apocalypse Ravi doesn't really get too much value. Another thing that I do want to point out, this is a relatively recent thing as of the recording of this video, but with the buff to Sharoon as well as the change to Death Dealer Ray, you kind of have these Venom teams as well that are really good against Apocalypse Ravi, because they are a combination of the control teams, like with your Solitaries and your Sage Ball and Saisons, and they're also injury in nature, just like with Alencia and Ilanev. And that is going to do it for how to play Apocalypse Ravi. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and let me know if there's any other characters you think that my guides are outdated on that I should probably try to revisit. This is a departure from my stance in the past, but again, I want to try to give you all the information you need to arm the characters that you want to play. As for new how to play characters, let me know which ones you want to see as well down below. I've been having some kind of struggles on deciding which ones I would actually want to focus on and bring to you. For example, Destina was one that I was debating and actually had a fair amount of work done on, but she's kind of fallen a little bit in the past several months. She's not as good, and I'm not really sure if that's a character that people would really want to actually see. So again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye now.